Okay, title might be a little harsh, and if you've read it, Why I Hate Every Human on This Planet, if you're human and watching this video, I suspect you're probably a little offended. And I mean no offense, I just mean it so you can comprehend uh, my thinking. I was driving in the back seat of somebody's car in downtown Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Massive, massive town. Really, really rich, wealthy, oil related province. And there are thousands and thousands of homeless people right downtown. And this one day that I'm driving, at the traffic light, there's clearly a man that had to have been in his 40s that was mentally ill. Um, you could tell that, he was not on drugs. He was standing in the middle of high traffic, talking to himself. He looked like he was more schizophrenic. Um, didn't look like he was suffering from any type of drugs. He looked healthy. Um, but okay, you just have to sort of be able to see the difference. There's a lot of homeless people, and you can see who's on drugs and who's mentally ill and on the streets, and who is drug addicts or alcoholics. You can kind of tell the difference. Anyways, this guy stood out like a sore friggin' thumb, and I'm in the back seat of this car going, oh my God, I live on a planet where the wealthiest area on the planet can just drive by and watch somebody in need and not stop and help. Right away, I was hating everybody on that highway, and I'm telling you, it was a busy friggin' intersection. There was at least 3 lanes going in this direction and that direction, and 3 lanes going in that direction. So there was hundreds of people, thousands of people drove by this guy and did nothing. And right away, it was an instant, oh my God, what kind of planet do I live on? What kind of people live here that they would just drive by and do nothing? And then all of a sudden, I noticed myself driving in this car in the back seat, and I did nothing. And while this was all going on, I was living my own torture, which the experience of your life depends on, like, the level of how bad it is. Um, Lots of times when shit's happening to us, we think it's not so bad because everybody around us that's doing it to us is saying, hey, suck it up, it's not so bad. And so, in your mind, you're thinking, no, this is really bad shit here, and why is everybody just treating it like this is not a big deal? My divorce was extremely abusive. I can't personally see how anybody could have survived the experience that I survived and keep their heads and not completely lose their mind, to be able to never function again and in a hospital for the rest of your life. I just cannot picture how any human being could survive that experience. Meanwhile, everybody that would judge my experience would say it's not so bad. But I had gone to a psychologist when it was like coming towards the very, very end of it all. And this psychologist opened up every drawer. He was like 80. And he opened up every drawer in his office, and his whole office was wall to wall cabinets of files of patients, and he opened them all and he said, most of my practice has been about divorce. And he says, out of all the years I've been doing it, yours is one of the worst. And as soon as I heard those words, it's like, okay, justification. This is bad. This is hell. And um, these experiences of this hating my whole friggin' world by watching what they do and then seeing myself do the same thing sort of made me see that while I'm hating everybody, I'm turning into exactly the people that I hate. So that was why I needed to really learn to calm down. So that's why meditation and this new age concept is important for us to know, but it won't solve any problems. It's actually the very thing that's caused most of the problems. I mean, you can calm down enough, and then what do? You focus on your own life and you're ignoring this shit. Now, I also wanted to share today that when I was about maybe 4 years old, I lived in Toronto, Ontario. My father worked for Thomson Newspapers, who owned major, I think it was like the Globe or the Toronto Star, one of the major newspapers. They've owned newspapers in Washington, D.C. I've lived there. Um, it was a small little organization that started off in Timmins, Ontario, where I was born, and my father was hired as sort of like a manager to start these newspapers. So I kind of have the media background watching my father do it, although my father was an abusive man as well. But at this one particular time when I was 4 years old, um, there was a neighborhood of us kids that would always go to the corner store. And there was a plaza and a mall down the store, but Toronto is like massive and huge, 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 huge. This is in Don Mills, Ontario. And when we were going to the crosswalk to cross this busy highway to get to the mall, there was this station wagon that was filled with kids, and there was a guy that had this massive butcher knife in this thing behind him. It was on a belt, and it was sort of sitting in there, but this massive knife, you couldn't help but not see it, and this big, beautiful birthday cake. Like, I mean, any kid would just go, oh my God, that looks good. That's great. That's awesome. And this guy asked all of us if we wanted to go to a picnic with and celebrate this birthday with some kids that were in the station wagon. Now, there were about three of us there that says, no, don't go in there. And there were about four of us that said we wanted to go. So the majority, from my remembrance, wanted to go on this picnic. So that's how easy kids were able to be fooled to walk into a stranger's car. But three of them, I believe I was one of them because I seen that friggin' knife. But the story that day was told as if they were trying to convince me not to go. I can't understand how people seen that perspective. But from the perspective I'm telling the story from, we managed to convince everybody that you're going to get hell, and I'm telling on you if you go in that car. And, it was just the I'm telling on you thing that kept everybody out of that car. And a few days later, there were kids missing, and shoes were being found, and like it was really big on the news. And this was like I'm 51 now. So, and back in those days, you didn't hear of the crimes you're hearing today. You know, it just wasn't a violent world. This violence that we're experiencing today has increased. But back then, you had neighborhood kids that actually had fun in their neighborhood. And you had adults that kind of knew kids needed to have fun in their neighborhood. You know, we had shit to play with, even though it was Toronto. Um, we didn't lock our doors. You know, like it wasn't a scary world. That's why it was so easy to get into somebody's cars. You didn't know any better because it just wasn't something that was going on at that time. But as a kid, I heard these news reports and I was trying to tell my parents, hey, we know these people because they tried to get us in this car and nobody believed us. And to the moral of the story is nobody knows the hell that I've seen. Nobody knows what's in this head, and nobody knows what experiences I've seen. Um, I can see something that I've observed on the streets. And it's a wild story to be able to tell. But it all depends on who wants to believe it. And that's where I'm like, so easy to hate everybody on the planet because if you see somebody that's going to, chop kids off and you don't want to listen to, a kid that's 4 years old who's seen and could picture everything that happened and actually had like what, seven or eight of us that were there, like nobody found that interesting. You know, thousands and thousands of people watch people that are mentally ill that can't even get themselves out of traffic somehow need to get food every day. They're human, they need to survive. Who is there helping them? I live on a planet where we can watch this and keep our eyes shut to it. And then I see judges and police, and I can go into churches looking for help. And the churches are the ones that disappointed me the most because there's the place where you can walk into these doors and God's going to save you. Jesus is going to save you. And um, it's been my experience that the parking lot of some of these churches that are full have really nice, big, huge cars. And you go in there and they're full. You know, you go into some other churches that don't have nice cars. The churches are empty. Like there's only a few people there. And wars are being fought over what kind of God we want to believe in. And then when we live in a world that's so friggin' cruel and violent, the mind has the ability to get into personality disorder where another entity can, take over your body and control your actions. And it's called channeling. So now we're seeing an epidemic of channeling. So, kind of see where you are. I'm going to continue this on another video.